go ahead. We're right on time, running a minute too late. Good. Where is... Okay, here we go. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the House Small Business Development Committee. And let's see, I'm just doing a little count. And for the record, I see we have a quorum. Our first order of business, it would like to start our meeting with a word of prayer. So, Representative Bazemore? You got it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. Father God, we do thank you. We love you. We adore you. Thank you for this day that you've made. Thank you for our life, our health, and our strength. Lord, we ask that you be in the midst of this meeting, Lord God, and have your way, Lord God. Help us to move the way you would have us to move. The bills that would come before us, Lord God. And oh, Heavenly Father, each and every person, I ask that you bless and keep in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. That was great. Anyway, I think the first order of business we need to attend to is to get a little bill out. Senator Parent, do you prefer the podium or the table? Whatever, it doesn't matter to me.
My chief staff is going to help me with the little slides that we have for you, which
Okay.
is going to enjoy. So I guess I'll go here if you're good over there. Okay, great.
Good. The floor is yours.
Marvelous. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Chokas and members of the committee. Great to see everyone this morning as we zip into some of our very busiest weeks. So I have today for you a bill that I consider to be a quintessential small business development bill. All of us are familiar with lemonade stands, with children having lemonade stands over summer months. Many of you have probably had one yourself, or your children have, or grandchildren. Until my constituents, who you're going to get to hear from, Tamima and Jack Ganauer, reached out to me last spring, I had no idea that in most places, children's lemonade stands are actually illegal because they are not exempted from business and food, health, and safety permitting regulations. And so I was pretty shocked to discover that. And I figured, you know what, we really need to make this right. And it turns out that some other states have been looking at the same issue, and I think there are about 12 or 15 now that have gone ahead and legalized forms of small businesses solely operated by children that, in our legislation, we have it at $5,000 a year or under. Well, with the Ganauer's business, that's Jack right there. You'll see that, they stood up quite an elaborate operation. They did market research. They really honed, that's Tamima and Jack, really honed their recipe. And after they were going through this whole standing up this business, their parents discovered, look, this is actually illegal. And you know what? We don't really want our children doing things that are illegal. It's not probably, is it a huge problem? Most are not shut down. But we have with you examples of a number that have been shut down by what I would consider to be somewhat overzealous police officers in various towns in Georgia. We found at least 3 instances in the last 8 or so years of police shutting down child-run lemonade stands. And, the Ganauers are good law-abiding citizens, so, they don't want to just have their kids be breaking the law. And then if you're going to comport with the law, not only is it expensive to pull all the permits, it's also pretty complicated and probably difficult for small children to manage on their own. So we figured, you know what, it's time for Georgia to get with the lemonade stand program, and we're going to file this bill. One interesting thing of note before we move on, because I know that you have much business in front of you today. Country Time Lemonade has actually found out about some of the instances where lemonade stands have been shut down by cops, and they started what did they call it? Country Time Legal Aid. And so you can go ahead and submit any costs incurred by the children to their legal aid program, and they will reimburse it. But So from this article in 2019, it says, according to the company, only 15 states allow unpermitted lemonade stands, with Texas and Colorado recently passing bills permitting young business moguls the ability to open a stand in their neighborhood. So I'm hoping that Georgia will join those states and tell our kids that we want them to be able to hone their entrepreneurial skills and business skills at a young age, as well as have a little bit of fun. So is that ready for the...
Well, I only see 4 slides. I'm not sure what happened.
That's okay. That should be...
So that's it. But there was a video, but I don't know.
That's okay. If we don't have the video, that is okay. I can take questions and then... Oh, okay. Any questions while they're working
We've
out the
got
little
a couple
technical difficulties?
questions. Number 29.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, which LC number are we working off of?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll answer that one.
54023-6S?
That's correct.
We added
so-
lines 27 through 29, I think, since I've read it. The question is, for the presenter, the senator, is it's not maybe a big deal, but there are people under 18 have already graduated from high school. They couldn't do a lemonade stand, I don't think, based on 27, 28, and 29. That's just a point that there's a lot of people are already graduated from high school or have a equivalency diploma before they're 18. That's just something to point
Thank
out.
16 or 17, you could. I mean, especially 17, I would think.
All right, 18. Who's number 18?
I am, thank you. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
You made a statement earlier that I really didn't hear what you said. You said they couldn't do something.
They couldn't legally run the lemonade stand without pulling all the permits.
Okay, and so these lemonade stands that this legislation would cover would strictly be for a lemonade stand on the property in which they live.
Yes, I failed to go over some of the specifics because I was so excited about the concept. So in the legislation, what we have is private property. We have lemonade or other non-potentially hazardous, non-alcoholic beverages, non-consumable goods, and resale of purchased packaged foods. That's what's included in the legislation.
Okay. I am always pro entrepreneurship, especially getting young folk involved in business. But as a former city council person, my concern would be that the state is now preempting their ability to govern on a local level. And so if this passes, I guess I just want to be assured that we are only covering a very small amount of items, and it's only for the young people under 18 years old that a police officer or a code enforcement still may come by as they're selling something else. I just want to make sure that we're specifically covering that, and we're not opening the door, because as you said, it's not a huge problem, but when it is a problem, it's a problem.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. So, Representative Carter, you'll probably want to look specifically at lines 20 through 26. So, yes, under 18, private property with the permission of the property owner, $5,000 a year or less, and then here are the things that could be sold.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be on the property in which they reside, but as long as it's privately owned and that owner gives permission. So,
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct.
Thank you. Chairman, if you're getting ready to call on Representative, I'm going to speak for her.
She lost her.
Oh, no.
Okay. So what do you want to do, 18?
Well, you could do, if you want to do 17 and pull her over here. I just want, it got weird. Okay, these are Representative Kendrick's questions
I understand.
because she can't talk. Is HSC similar to a GED? High
I
school
believe that it
equivalent.
is. This is the part that the committee presented as a committee substitute.
Okay. And her next question is, how do you all come up with the $5,000 limit? Where did that come from?
That is a great question. Originally, I had 3,000 in there, modeled after Tennessee's bill. But the Senate committee thought it was appropriate to raise that a bit. And, we don't have it automatically adjusted for inflation. So we ended up thinking 5,000 was an appropriate number to go with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. I'm curious, have there been any cases of any city employees showing up to try to demand a business license?
So, yes, in Helen a couple of years ago, it happened. In Midway, it happened also within the last 5 years. And then there was one other. Savannah, that's right. Yeah. So, yes, those have all been kind of within the last 8 years, just from a casual Google search, not an exhaustive, research, when it made the news. The young ladies in Helen were planning to use their proceeds to go to a water park, and the police came by and said, you can't operate this lemonade stand. So while not totally regular, it does happen.
Follow-up comment, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you for bringing this bill. I think we are seeing local governments overreach more and more and overregulate more and more, and they never see a regulation or a fee they don't like charging. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, number 21.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Going back to Ms. Representative Carter's point, isn't this a local issue, or maybe an HOA issue if they're doing it from their home? I don't understand why sometimes we gotta, like the representative said, I know some local, they get in the way, but aren't we getting in the way of local issues and even HOA issues? And I'm curious also, that's one point. My curious also is, do you think people would take advantage of it? You give them, who doesn't want to, help out a kid, but do you think that instead of 1 or 2 days, they'll be there all 52 weeks, just weekends, out of the year? So I just want to see how many times a year would they be able to do this? It could be frustrating for a homeowner sometimes if you're doing it from your home.
So, first of all, great questions. It would have to be with the express permission of the property owner. So
That's right.
You can't just show up on someone's lawn and do it. Typically I would imagine people would be on their own lawns, or maybe their grandparents or what have you, or a neighbor that is saying that they can. So the minute the property owner was not interested in having the child-run business on their property, the child-run business would not be permitted to stay. That's why there was some discussion out of my colleagues in the Senate about removing the cap on proceeds entirely, and say, hey, if these kids can make this money, let's let them. Let's let their entrepreneurial skills shine. If they can make $500,000, great. But we kept it in for that very reason that you raised, which is most importantly, you don't want unscrupulous adults taking advantage of children and trying to hide a much different business behind children. So it needs to be an actual child-run business. So we're talking $5,000 or less annually. There's nothing in the bill about which days or anything like that. It's just if you make more than $5,000, you would no longer be exempt from the permitting regulations and business regulations of the local jurisdiction that you're in.
All right, number 29.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask this one time to make sure I understand again. Line 27, 28, and 29. If somebody's under 17, has already graduated from high school, they cannot meet that criteria. The only thing they meet, they're under 18. Says they have to be in a public school, licensed private school, enrolled in adult education, or studying for a high school equivalency. So if a child was 16 or 17, already graduated from high school, would that eliminate them from running a lemonade stand? And I think it would. That was kind of my question before.
Mr. Chairman, if they're 16 years old and they've already graduated from high school, $5,000 isn't going to be enough to support them.
We're talking about these kids supporting themselves.
No, I'm talking about if they've graduated from high school and not pursuing another education, any other educational endeavors, then I would assume that they're in the job market.
Well, they're probably going to go to college, but I'm just asking a question and I hadn't got an answer, so I'll just forget I asked that question.
You would need to figure out a way to word it where someone, well, since it has to be under 18, we're only talking about 17-year-olds, really, right? I mean, you could be talking about 16-year-olds, but that seems more of a stretch.
Let's go to number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. Just a quick question. Is the revenue being tracked? The money's being tracked?
Not in the bill,
Okay.
no. I mean, the local, you don't have to submit anything unless you're kind of above that level.
So if it's not being tracked, follow-up question?
Yes, of
Mr.
course.
Chair? If it's not being tracked, then how would you know it's not over the $5,000 limit?
Well, it'll be up to the individuals to track that themselves.
Okay.
The local government wouldn't be tracking how much money brought in unless, it would still be a code enforcement issue, right? So if police or code enforcement noticed, hey, this business is doing things that we think are now outside of the scope of this legislation or any other legislation, then that becomes a code enforcement issue
And then who do they report?
to the
amount?
local government.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then they would be subject to all business licensing requirements that they would otherwise be subject to if they really were, running an operation where code enforcement starts to think, we think they're bringing in, $25,000 a year, and that does not then fall under the provisions of this legislation.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, well, we've exhausted all the questions. What's the pleasure of the committee? Oh, yeah. Let me recognize,
Well, Mr. Chairman, before we do that, do you mind if I think the kids might want to say something?
oh, that would
Do
be
you have
great.
time for that?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Tamima Gnauer. I'm 12 years old, and I am here to tell you why I think that kids should be able to run a lemonade stand without worrying about being shut down. 2 years ago, my brother and I started a business called Lemonade in the Shade. We went through a lot of concepts about the structure of a business and how to run it. Our business was very successful because we made a lot of money and we got to sell and drink some really delicious lemonade. Lemonade stands are an easy and popular way for kids to make money. They teach you about having a small business, things like money management, advertising, and how to make a good product. Later in life, people can look back at that lemonade stand they had, and it would help them understand the concepts of business. There's one problem. Lemonade stands are illegal in Georgia. There are kids who are afraid of getting shut down, so they won't try to run one. Even if kids do it anyway, there is still a law that says that you can't. Even if kids don't abide by the law, it's always better to have it written down that it's legal. If this bill passes the House and the governor signs it, then this problem will be solved. Kids everywhere in Georgia could experience not only the fun of a lemonade stand, but all kinds of businesses that are interesting to them. If this bill passes, we would start our lemonade business again, and maybe even be more successful. I hope that you consider this bill so that me and the kids of Georgia can experience entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You did an excellent job, young lady. I can't believe you're 12.
See here we can see how entrepreneurship and skill development have produced this fine, intelligent young woman through a lemonade stand.
Cool. We've got a couple more questions. Number 15.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator. I just want to thank you for being an I'm over here, an entrepreneur. You did an excellent job. One question, did you bring any samples?
You sold out, didn't you?
Yeah, we sold out.
Okay. Great answer.
I think I got the last one at the Senate hearing. So until it's legal again, y'all will just have to wait for your taste.
Yeah, we just still have the ingredients. It's not made.
All right, number 16.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Young lady, what's your name again?
Tamima Ganauer.
Timmy McEnauer?
Tamima Ganauer.
Timmy McEnauer. Okay, I'm writing that name down because I think you have a bright future. I think we'll hear from you again. But I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was very articulate, you're very competent, you're very smart, and your parents should be very proud of you.
Cool. Well, super. We've exhausted all the questions. Representative Washburn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we pass this with a do pass recommendation.
Would you read the LC number?
The LC number is 500543S, parenthetically SCS.
Is that the correct one? No, that's not.
That's what's on my blue sheet. Is that not? White. Sorry. LC 540236S.
Good. There's a motion. Is there a second? And multiple seconds. All right, any further discussion? I see Todd from the ACCG. Do you want to make any comments from representing your organization about how y'all feel about this? I'll pass. You'll pass? Same thing with Municipal Association? Sure. Super. I see that thumbs up says as a positive. Yes, perfect. We're neutral on this bill. Thank you. All right. Number 18.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I was hoping we were going to address the under 18-year-old, because if we have a under 18-year-old who has graduated from high school, could potentially be in college, and on the break decides he wants to come home and hold a lemonade stand, they would be prohibited. So is there any way for address that under 18-year-old that could potentially be in college?
Yeah, let me do that. Sean Marie, would you please address that issue you brought to my attention?
One way to address that would be if you change lines 27 through 29 so that they read instead as follows. Number 5, such individual under 18 years of age is either A, enrolled in a public school, licensed private school, or licensed home study program or state-approved adult education class if studying for a high school equivalency HSE diploma, or B, has obtained a high school diploma or a high school equivalency HSE diploma. So essentially, you're just adding to it the fact that it gives them the option that in addition to being currently enrolled in one of those, that they could have already obtained a high school diploma or a high school equivalency diploma, but they still have to be 18 years or under. Yep. Well, excuse me, under 18. They can't be 18.
Okay. And the correct posture would be, amendment to this?
Amendment to the sub.
All right. are you making that motion?
So move.
All right. There's a second. All right. Now we vote on the amendment and then the main motion.
That's
All
what
right.
I'm
All those in favor of amending it using the language that Sean Marie had, but basically opening it up to anyone 18 years and older, younger, 18 years or younger, sorry, that has completed their education, and then I'm allowing them to sell lemonade. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Cool. It's amended. Now to the main motion. Main motion is the LC number, LC 54036S, amended in committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, young lady. Oh, yeah, we need to ask, who's the House sponsor?
Representative Oliver.
And
who-
Margaret's going to do it. She'll
The
do a great
Gnauers
job.
are also her constituents, so.
Super. Well, congratulations and thank you. Thank you
Well,
for being.
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to all of the wonderful members of the committee this morning.
Cool.
Our video did not work, but it was fabulous. I don't know that oh, did it work? Well, I don't know. They may need to move on at this point, but, yeah. But we can send it to those that are interested. Yeah.
Good. All right. And now let's move on to the agenda. What we've got next. Ellen Reynolds with the Georgia Cal Chair Association. Do you want the podium?
No.
Cool.
Just 1 minute while we switch out presentations. While my faithful sidekick, my husband, is doing that for me. My name is Ellen Reynolds. I am the CEO of the Georgia Child Care Association, and we are the quintessential small businesses that actually support all of the other small businesses' ability to hire and have talent come and work for you in your industries. And so I brought a few folks because for us, the pandemic got kicked down the road. We got an infusion here in Georgia of over $2 billion from ARPA funds to help keep child care centers open, but those funds are going to start running out on October 1st. We are already seeing a lack of access to child care because we can't hire the staff to take as many families as we could pre-pandemic. And we just kind of wanted to give you all a little bit of background, because if child care centers aren't open and able to service your employees and your staff, we're going to have a real shortage of the ability to continue our advances in economic development and continue to being the #1 place to do business in the state. So I brought the experts up here, which are 4 of my providers, and I'm going to let them talk to you about that. The first one is Hal King of Discovery Point. He owns 2 centers. Robert Hill with Cadazzle. They own 5 centers in Atlanta. Danielle Millman with Otter Learning represents the larger corporation's perspective, but how these businesses are still run as small businesses. And finally, Wani Okanor Meadows with Little Ones Learning Center will be presenting on basically kind of talking about how public schools are not quite ready to take on 3-year-olds. So with that, Hals, I'll let you come on up.
Thank you.
That's the magic button. Okay, good morning. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to move this up here. Okay, to share our perspective on the industry. And my real objective here is twofold. One is to give you a bit of a primer on the industry, but more importantly, to express our appreciation to the support that we have been given. It has been critical to allow us to remain or provide quality care for Georgia families. I do want to also ensure that I help you understand not only how critical it has been, but the support is continue to be needed to allow us to do that. As Ellen said, as what we've been calling the cliff is approaching on September 30th. And I speak to this from firsthand knowledge, that's up there, As I've been in this industry almost 20 years, and I survived the great financial crisis, or the business survived the great financial crisis. I made the great decision to get my second center in April of 2008. So I went literally 43 months of losing money, emptied out every account that I had to make it through. I look back and I'm actually surprised that I was able to sleep at night over that period of time, and I think mostly because I don't think my wife really was aware of how close we came. So this time, through that great financial crisis, as I understood the statistic, there were 1,600 child care providers went out of business. That's both child care development centers as well as family-owned operators. And it's important to know because we have dodged that bullet during the last 2 years, and it really is because of the support that we have been given from you and the legislature and the governor. So we have been very blessed to have really weathered this storm of the pandemic. And again, it's important to know that needs to continue. Now, I also like to, whenever I talk to friends who aren't aware of the child care industry, to share some insight. This is a low margin business. It's been in the across the media through the pandemic, and if there's any silver lining through that time is that the appreciation that the community has gained on the child care industry and the importance of it to our economy and to our families. The low margins really, everybody asks if it's insurance. Insurance, surprisingly, is less than 0.5% of revenue. That's our cost. And the reason, quite frankly, it's a testament to the quality of care that our providers give. We don't have that many incidents. There's not that many claims, and that really rolls through to the fact that it's not an onerous cost to us. Rightfully so, our biggest cost is labor. They're the ones who provide the care to our children. And as a lot of small businesses have faced, our costs have risen dramatically. And I can just speak to myself that my average hourly wage has gone up over 40% in the last 2 years. And that is something that we have been able to absorb and not pass on to our families, primarily because of the support. There is a concern throughout the industry that after the September 30th cliff, and I apologize, just what we call it, there's going to be a necessity to either find a way to pass those costs on, or it's going to threaten the viability of some of the centers. So, again, I want to figure out how to do this. Okay. There's a couple of opportunities that will continue to present themselves, and my colleagues will talk to. One is the Georgia Pre-K. It has been historically underfunded. Matter of fact, most centers, and it's one of the things that y'all might not understand, is most centers lose money on a whole cost basis of those centers. Once we pay the teachers, I've done the calculation, it ends up being about $28, $29 per week per child is what we make. That's got to cover mortgage, the utility bills, and some of us food. So really, I want to thank you again that in the last 2 years, some of that has been addressed with ability, for instance, with raising the assistant teacher wage. I've been absorbing about $4 an hour in order to get the quality of assistant teacher that I need for the classrooms. And with this most recent raise, that will help the assistant teachers and also lessen the burden as we go for keeping them in with us as our staff. The final thing is how important CAPS can be. Our teachers, there is a pool of teachers of candidates that with children, and one of the opportunities I think presents is if we can somehow prioritize offering that funding to early childhood teachers, that will help us as both in getting the staff level up as well as that which rolls through to offering the care to our families. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. Thank you again.
Robert?
Good morning, committee. How are you all today? I'm Robert Hill, owner of Cadazzle Child Care, and we've been operating Georgia Lottery Pre-K since 1996. We cover from downtown Atlanta to Hampton, Georgia. And a couple of things that you need to understand about the Georgia Lottery program and how it is underfunded. If you want to run it correctly, you're going to lose money as a Georgia Lottery Pre-K owner. Simply, there is only $1,000 per classroom for 10 months of educational service for consumables for all 22 children that has been provided. Also, if you have a staff member, the assistant teachers right now are only being funded at $12, a little less than $12 an hour. And how can we maintain quality teachers if we only have $12 an hour when Chick-fil-A, Wendy's is doing 17? So please take in consideration that the underfunding, the pure underfunding of this great program is a problem. And if we don't fund it appropriately, what will we have? With that,
And that's where I'd just like to add that the state is the largest purchaser of child care, both through Georgia Pre-K and the CAPS program, which you're about to hear about now. We purchased 73,000 slots through Georgia Pre-K and another 65,000 slots through Georgia CAPS. When the state's underfunding that, we have to go charge full pay parents. Part of the reason the cost of tuition is so high across the board in Georgia is because of these deficits, because we cannot go charge our families the difference on either of these programs at this time. And so we need to look, we talk about fully funding QBE, we talk about fully funding Hope Tuition. I realize the House decided to go 95% versus 100%, but we need to start talking about fully funding the cost of tuition for Georgia Pre-K and CAPS. So with that, I'm going to call up Danielle Millman to speak to the CAPS, which this is the scholarships that we give in conjunction with the federal government to the working poor in the state.
Thanks, Ellen. Good morning. House is much taller than me. So is Robert. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I just want to share CAPS, as Ellen mentioned, is Child Care and Parent Services, and they award scholarships to support early childhood education so children can have quality education for the working poor in Georgia. And just to get a sense of what the working poor in Georgia is to qualify for CAPS, you have to be at 50% of the federal poverty limit. So for a family of four, for instance, that's making $15,000 a year. No more than. You can't make more than $15,000 a year to get this assistance with a family of four, exactly. So the ARPA grants, as House mentioned, have afforded us the ability to stay afloat during COVID and this crisis. And there's been a payment, an additional supplemental payment of $2,800 per student that's awarded a CAPS scholarship. As you've heard, the cliff, right? In October 1st, this money is supposed to go away. And so if you take a look at what that means, that would be about $154 million coming out of small businesses across the state with early childhood care providers. In addition, the plan is to take out 10,000 more scholarships, which is a reduction of 15% of the CAPS funding. So for us, we also are across the state of Georgia and typically in rural areas that need good quality education for early childhood. Just for us, a 15% reduction in our Gainesville school would be $103,000, $104,000 a year. And then if we remove that supplemental grant, that $2,800 that's been coming through ARPA, that would be another $123,000 that will come out of the business. in the end of this year. So it's a total loss of about $227,000, which obviously changes, as Howes mentioned, it's a very thin margin business already. That completely changes the way that we would have to operate. And so we have options. We could charge private pay families more, or we can request that the access funds be dedicated to fully funding CAPS as well, and that CAPS be awarded to early childhood education employees so that there is incentive to remain in the field and there is some benefit as many people have left the field. So that's my request for you, and I will let Wandy and Ellen come on up.
Yeah, and just to share, it's right now, the governor's been very prudent in the use of the federal funds. The current access program allows families to attend tuition-free if they meet that very narrow definition, right? They don't have extra money really to pay a copay. So, and there is enough funding, we believe, because of the prudent way that the department and the governor have used these dollars to actually extend this program one more year to October 1st of 2024. So the number one thing this committee could do is ask the governor to extend that program one more year, assuming funds are sufficient, but in conversations with the department, we do believe they are sufficient. So, and then I'll bring up Wandy Okenhorn-Meadows to just talk to you a little bit about, we hear a lot about talking about putting 3-year-olds into Georgia Pre-K. But we need to fully fund 4-year-olds, and here are some reasons why it would be challenging to put 3-year-olds in.
Good morning. So during the pandemic, Governor Kemp indicated that we were essential. Our industry was essential. We are the backbone of the economy. We are the backbone of America. So we want to make sure that we continue to be that, not now, but in the long run. Governor Kemp even went a step further, and during the press conference, he and Amy Jacobs, the commissioner for the Department of Early Care and Learning, issued a statement making sure that police officers did not stop us on our way to work during the pandemic, during the government shutdown. We know that the state is not fully funding the 4-year-old program, and it has never funded the 4-year-old program. I'm with Little Ones Learning Center in Clayton County, which is the least well-off metro Atlanta county out of all of the Atlanta counties. My family has been there for 28 years, I know your eyebrows went up, yes, for 28 years. Right now, there's great concern that there's a push for 3-year-olds to come into the public schools. And there's this, I don't know where this race to the top is coming from. We want to rush and put 3-year-olds in schools. And for me, as an early educator, it seems that we're racing to nowhere. Yes, children need to be educated. I'm all for parent choice, but it has to be done with developmentally appropriate tools. 3-year-olds cannot sit on 4-year-old, 5-year-old toilets in public schools. I have personally witnessed 3-year-old mixed delivery systems in public schools, and I am frightened. Just because you have a kindergarten teacher who is amazing at teaching P through 5 does not mean a P through 5 teacher can teach a 3-year-old. The attention span of a 3-year-old is totally different from a kindergarten, first, second grader. We saw it during the pandemic. I had people calling us all the time, when are y'all gonna open? Ma'am, it's COVID. It's COVID. We are closed. Because parents know that the attention span of a grade schooler is very different from that of a 2- and 3-year-old. My concern is even if this happens, that we cannot sustain ourselves. So if we have a system where 3-year-olds, or universal pre-K, whatever you want to call it, happens, as a provider, my center is not going to be able to sustain itself only with 1- and 2-year-olds. 3-year-olds leave, and it's just 1- and 2-year-olds. Where are those siblings going to go? Then we have a situation where I have 2 choices to sustain. I can either lower my cost, quality goes down, or I shut my doors, period. There's no middle grounds. Those are the 2 choices. So we wonder why some of those other schools in the affluent areas don't have Georgia Pre-K. It's the cost. If Pre-K is not funding itself right now, it's not paying the full cost, what makes us think that the state is gonna bear its full cost for 3-year-olds? We know the definition of insanity.
I'm not saying Georgia is insane. I'm not saying that. I really am not. But we also know that it would lead to more state inspections. Anytime we get a new program, there's this push for, we have to monitor. We need the feds to make sure that we're doing this program right. That is going to disproportionately affect lower income neighborhoods. Clayton County, we will be over-monitored, over-regulated to make sure things are being done right. And it's going to be another, gotcha, told you they couldn't do it right, told you. Again, our neighborhoods, my neighborhood, is going to be disproportionately affected. We want to make sure that the playground equipments, a 3-year-old cannot get on kindergarten equipment, y'all. I have the state in my program, unannounced visits, all of that. I have playground equipment for 1 and 2-year-olds, 3 and 4-year-olds, and then after schoolers. So I'm very curious to know how it would affect 3-year-olds going into the regular school system if the state is prepared to foot that bill for playground equipment that needs to be developmentally appropriate for 3-year-olds. And finally, my concern for the mixed delivery program is our teachers. We know that we're in a massive teacher shortage, massive, have never seen this before. If this mixed delivery program goes through, there's going to be a huge push for all the teachers to go to the mixed delivery programs. Y'all, there's not going to be any kind of, they're going to leave the few qualified teachers that are in our programs, they're going to leave early care. So I already have a waiting list of almost 80 kids right now just to get into my program right now, because I don't want to overcram and overstuff and burn out the teachers I have now, so we keep it the way it is. But if we can't keep the qualified teachers that we have now that are degreed, that everybody says we want them degreed, right? And they're going to go to the public schools and where they can get a little bit more money or whatever it is. And if the state of Georgia, the Board of Regents, is it the Board of Regents? Am I making up names? No, it's Board of Regents. Okay, thanks. The Board of Regents, they recently axed a lot of the early childhood education degrees. So if we are no longer offering early childhood degrees and teaching degrees, how are these teachers supposed to get educated? I'm just confused. I'm just trying to have everything make sense, and it's not making sense. So my request to you, the committee, is to let us do what we do best. We are the experts. We're early educators. We know our stuff backwards and forwards. We know the value of nap time. We're not going to tell those kids to get on a computer to entertain themselves. We're going to practice that language and literacy, those social emotional skills, because we know what brain development 0 through 5 looks like. And this is not a knock to kindergarten through 5. They know what they do, and they do it very, very well. Let us do what we do well. Thank you.
Thank you. So why are we here talking to small business? Because child care centers are small businesses, and we need some champions in this legislature looking at us like the small businesses we are, and to understand all the constraints and understand if we go away, it impacts small businesses all across the state. And, to kind of do a 10,000 summation of Wandy's point, the economics of a child care center do not work if you take 3 and 4-year-olds out of that small business. You cannot charge enough tuition for infant and toddlers to cover the ratios and the labor that it takes to do that. So we just wanted to come and share this as some thought and educate, because we need some small business champions saying, wait a minute, well-intended policies aimed at literacy, which we are all about in the early childhood, and we are so glad that people are finally realizing literacy begins at 0, not in kindergarten. We're working on those children to give them those pre-literacy skills so that they can take full advantage of K-12. But that's why we wanted to come talk to you as a small business committee looking at those issues to help maybe educate some of your colleagues as well about, while there are good and well-intended policies, you could actually decimate the child care system that's left in Georgia without a lot of extensive conversation. So with that, I'll close, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present and entertain any questions.
Yeah, Ellen, thank you. We've got someone else. What I'd encourage, because I've got some lights up, I want to encourage the committee to stay afterwards and have questions and answer with Ellen and the presenters. But we have the senior director from Talent Development with the Metro Chamber. Tim, if you would be kind enough, introduce yourself and if you want to come to the podium or the table, whichever is convenient for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you for being so patient.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Tim Carroll. I'm Senior Director for Talent Development at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. And on behalf of myself and my colleagues who are here, I want to thank you for having us this morning. I'm going to be very brief. You all have this presentation coming electronically to you, so you'll have this information in front of you. We have an entire team at the Chamber that's dedicated to talent development and to helping businesses grow and expand. And some of the things that we do with businesses, this is inside the Chamber, as we share better practices, we connect and strategize, we look at what other states are doing in the areas of talent, that's both attracting and retaining talent, and figure out how do we create better employment systems. So within that, data, of course, is a very key element of how we guide our work. Many of you know some of this data, low unemployment rates. We have a really decent level of labor force participation in the state that mirrors what's happening in the nation. But what you may not realize is that our supply side, where we are conferring degrees from all levels, that's from 4-year degrees all the way to certifications through our various systems, have not kept pace with that growth. This is just to set to where we are on the employment trend. Georgia and the metro area outpace the nation on where we are for employment. Within that employment, we know a lot of people choose to move to Georgia from other places, but that choosing factor has slowed, not just for us, but for everywhere in the nation. There are very few instances where you will find a state or a metro area whose import of talent from other areas has kept pace with job growth. And Georgia is no different on that. I want to talk about where are these job postings? Where's the demand happening on the industry side? So this is just to set the stage here. We've got the black sort of shows where we were in 2017, and the red shows where we were in 2021. If you look at any type of industry, it doesn't matter how big or how small the industry is here in Georgia, they're all hitting record growth. Even after 2020, that growth trend still continues up. Georgia and our industry sector continue to remain strong. Within those industries, specific occupations, many of these, for those of you who've been on this committee for a while, you know that those demand by occupation or those jobs that are required have kind of stayed steady. The registered nurses, the long-haul tractor-trailer drivers, retail sales. But there's a few of them, like in software development and IT, that are even outpacing the nation by quite a good clip. When we look at where we are supplying degrees, we've seen some shift with where students are choosing for certificates all the way through 4-year degrees. We've seen some increases in IT and other sectors and some flatlining in others, just to put that out there. The advantage Georgia has that I think a lot of our competitive states don't is where the institutions that we're supplying those from. 26 colleges and universities, 22 technical colleges, and 10 HBCUs. That's a pretty hefty access and resource that we have here in the state that makes us very attractive for economic development at all levels of business, including small business. I do want to talk about what we are seeing from our own industries, what we're seeing from our own businesses. The entry level, while still high, aren't where the critical jobs to fill are. Where we struggle on the industry sectors are those 3 to 5 year experience jobs. So this is like your frontline supervisors, your frontline sales, all the way into IT network and supervisors. The industry has responded by dropping education requirements. You know that there's some bills going through the legislature now to have the state look at that across agencies. Industry is already doing this on our side. So when we surveyed our HR professionals, we're already seeing those degree requirements start to drop off. But what that translates into is that businesses are having to look deeper on skills and how we are assessing skills of employees, particularly those new applicants who are coming in that could potentially lead to those 3 to 5 year jobs, or feeder jobs sometimes as they're called in the news. no surprise that our top listed skill, the one that every business wants, is communication skills. Can this person communicate? Can they talk with customers? Can they talk with my own fellow employees to do the work that we need to do? I want to talk about where we get our better practices from when we look at other states and other metros that are doing some really good work. Upskill Houston, which I had the pleasure of visiting just a couple of months ago, has been knocking this out from the energy sector side since about 2014. They've had this program in place, and it's very similar to what I mentioned before, taking those entry-level positions and adding some type of certification or skill building for those positions to put them in those 3 to 5 year range that are critical to the business succeeding. Similar in Kentucky, and this actually goes into a different sectors. They've got healthcare, and that applies across the entire state. So that's rural hospitals as well as their larger hospital systems, and also extends into the manufacturing sector. So they've got a pretty wide variety of work that they're doing there. And a lot of the work that we are doing with our HR professionals is informed by these two practices. How we work to solve some of these problems, obviously we work with y'all on good policy. That's sort of straightforward. But we also get together our HR folks and we look at how do we do things better, whether that's how we change how we're wording job descriptions, how we're sourcing talent, like what institutions and what platforms are we using to collect and advertise on. And obviously we use data as a basis. So this report that's embedded in the presentation that you all have is part of a long-standing set of reports. It was formerly called Your Talent, Your Future, which some of you may have seen. We're now going to call a talent supply report, just making it more reflective of what the data that we're putting into that. That should be out later this year, and we'll be happy to share that back with the committee when that is out. And then we just simply ask to support strong talent development policy across the board. And I could go down a long list of things that y'all are already working on to help do that, and we appreciate your help on that. And we are always available to take more questions or to meet with you individually if that's what you desire.
Cool. Tim, thank you very much. Leanne, can you do a quick, or would you rather come back?
Oh, I don't have anything.
Tim did? Okay. Well, good. I apologize for running out of time, but I would encourage the members of the committee to stay and ask questions to our presenters. And thank you all for sharing this information with us. Meeting adjourned.